What breaks first in your life if farming has 2 more bad years?
I don't know if breaking is really an option. In my brain, I'll always figure it out. So agriculture is not struggling. Farmers are struggling. You just said no one's coming to help you. No one is going to bail you out.
And we were different men. Since then, we've lived through all kinds of crazy things. Bull market, bear market, pandemic, all kinds of crazy stuff in our personal lives. What do you control when the weather and the banks don't care? Welcome to Growing the Future Podcast, Season 8, Episode 5. 2,333 days ago in September of 2019, this individual was the second guest that I ever had on the show. It was a different world. It was a different market. There was different kinds of pressures, and we were different men. Since then, we've lived through all kinds of crazy things. Bull market, bear market, pandemic, all kinds of crazy stuff in our personal lives. I'll be talking to a farmer, a builder, an operator who thinks more about structure than he thinks about hype. Trust me. He's based in Saskatchewan. He runs a grain farm while quietly building a parallel business in his garage. From custom laser engraved glass and wood pieces to high-end 3D crystal branding work. He didn't start building because it was trendy. He started building because 5 rough crop years forced a simple question, folks. What do you control when the weather and the banks don't care? And I think that's the title of this episode. What breaks first? This man's wiring is quite unusual. He's a Colby 5447, which means he explains clearly, maintains systems, modifies under pressure, and builds tangible solutions. He's an Enneagram Type 8 challenger, direct, decisive, protective of autonomy, and allergic to weakness disguised as strategy. His instinct stack is self-preservation first, survival, sustainability, and independence. He doesn't romanticize entrepreneurship, talks about debt, deal structure, margins, and what actually breaks first when the markets turn. He believes in work converted to cash. He believes deals should end cleanly. He believes independence matters more than scale. Most people don't need motivation, they need clarity. He's not trying to be famous, folks. He's trying to build things that last. Welcome to the show, Jeff Bennett.
Just a warning, I don't think I really want to do this podcast. I want to go fight somebody after that intro.
You would be rather formidable charging over the hill, my friend. The beard has only grown. You've only grown in girth and size and courage. So proud of you in the 9 years since we had this conversation. Number one question for you, Jeff. What breaks first in your life if farming has 2 more bad years?
I don't know if breaking is really an option. In my brain, I'll always figure it out. I think that the farm might change in ways that I wouldn't have considered 9 years ago. I think I may have to do things that I wouldn't want to do. But in the end, I think as a parent, as a 4th generation farmer, hoping for a 5th, somehow it'll survive. So what breaks first? I don't know if anything's going to break. I don't think that's really an option.
And not break. I love it. What do you refuse to depend on anymore? Banks, weather, government, markets?
Honestly, I'm just, as we're talking, thinking about 9 years ago, I think what I depend on less is people. And not all people, but realizing, because even in that 9 years before, there was, years before that, right? And I think things that I learned in that time to then and from then to now is that people usually will do the will of somebody else if they think it's better for them. And it may sound sad, but I don't mean it in a negative way even. I mean, I'm probably the same way. I think it's just that, and it's not even to say that people are untrustworthy or that people you can't depend on them. But I think that the thing you have to depend on most is yourself. If you don't have that covered, you can't really go to somebody else and say, please help me. Because if they're going to turn around and do the same to you and you don't have your stuff figured out, then it's not a relationship that's going to last.
No one's coming to save you. I heard that recently and it really resonated. If your kids copied your current operating model, Jeff, would you be proud or concerned?
Depends, because I think, again, I've been in this bend not break scenario for a long time. So I don't even know if I could define what my current model is. It's reactionary. Um, it's been last minute, been thought out, ironically, at the same time. But if my kids came to me and said, you know, fast forward 20 years, my kids came to me and said, we're going through these things. I think the important thing to do in that scenario would be to be there for them in a way that isn't, here's some money, this will fix it. It's understanding in a way that's non-judgmental and it's not too helpful. It's understanding from their perspective as well, because I mean, I look at this farm for the last 120 years and it's like, well, there's no way my granddad could help me with my situation. I don't think my dad could help me with this situation. So to go forward in time and have my like me and say we need help, I don't know if I can help them. I think that it would be a scenario where they're going to have to figure it out, but I'm not going to be an obstacle in their way. I'm not going to be somebody or something that they're going to have to work around. Um, my plan, I guess, is very long term, and it's the sustainability, financially independent of agriculture. Essentially, I've become right below jaded when it comes to this industry, but it's also a very realistic view of how things are. And like you just said, no one's coming to help you. No one is going to bail you out, and if they do, you're going to pay for it. And that is a very short term status.
What made you jaded about the industry?
I don't, like I said, just below jaded, because it's not one event. It's not, it's not one company. It's the fact that, like I mentioned earlier, that these are people, these are people who have a paycheck. These are board of, these are companies that have things to answer to that aren't their customers. And it's not, again, there's lots of examples that are contrary to this in my farming operation, people that I've worked with, but it's really frustrating to have, I'll just say it, so I've said it, but it's really frustrating to have the last 5 years. We had a good year last year. Um, but 21 just absolutely kicked the living hell out of me financially and never recovered really until last year. I got my feet under me again. Um, but it's really frustrating. And I'm sure people who are going to watch this that are in these scenarios to go through what I went through as someone who's given money, a lot of money to these or to these people, these places, these companies, and they've got new buildings. I mean, obviously, they're either in a different part of the industry that isn't so reliant on, and I'm not saying they haven't gone through tough times, but it's just, I think of the 9 places that I send money to in a year, 7 of them have new buildings. So agriculture is not struggling. Farmers are struggling. And maybe I'm just a bad farmer. I mean, that's always come to my mind too. But I've made bad decisions or poor decisions or the wrong decision. And um, but the ironic thing is, I don't think if I would have made the right decision, if I would be in much of a different situation, just because of the amount of years that we had that were just not, I mean, well below average, well below crop insurance, well below any sort of sustainability or growth, while at the same time, me as a younger farmer was trying to grow. So it's just, it's not even, like I said, it's not even that I'm jaded. It's not that I'm angry with anything. It's that that seems unfair from a personal standpoint. From a business standpoint, I get it. It's 100%. Flip it the other way. If, I don't know, if the accountant's world has changed for whatever reason and all of a sudden their expenses have gone up and I build a new shed, maybe they'll be on a podcast complaining about me. But it's in the other direction. It seems a bit more than chance that literally everyone has a new building in the last 3 years where I wish I had two pennies to scrape together because it's just, I mean, I'm being a little bit dramatic, but it's where the thought comes from. It's like I said, a step below jaded. It's not a personal um against anybody, but it's a bit frustrating.
What is your metric for a good farmer?
Honestly, I think it's the ability to pass it on to the next generation successfully that doesn't inhibit that generation from being able to farm. And again, it's situational, it's generational, it's there's a lot of things that go in it. But and my parents have done a good job, but it's frustrating to have the viability of the next generation or the viability of the retiring generation depend on the success of the next generation. That's a huge part of my goal with all of these things is I don't want my kids to have to buy the farm. I'm not saying they're going to get it for nothing, but at the same time, if this farm has been transferred 4 times and every situation was the same, that's millions of dollars going somewhere that it could have stayed in the farm or it could have, I don't know. It's obviously, like I said, situational, generational, not always applicable, but to some degree, if you aren't planning for the success of the next generation, you're failing as a farmer today. And maybe no one wants to take it over, in which case that's a different scenario. You'd have to use a different metric to define success, I think.
How are you doing in that metric on a scale of 1 to 10, Jeff? Today.
I'm planning for it. So I'm ahead of a lot of situations, I think. As far as actually doing it, I don't know. 0, 10. I don't, somewhere in there.
That is the scale, a 0 and 10 generally.
Can I pass the farm on to the next generation? I mean, I'd have to get a job to do it if I was just to give it over and my kids were magically 18 years older, all of them. But, no, like I said, it's something that's been on my mind since I started farming and my family started growing. And, I don't want to have, I want this farm to be bulletproof. I want this farm to do everything that every farmer says it can't. I want it to be able to withstand a drought for 5 years in a row or a flood for 5 years in a row because its income isn't dependent or its sole income isn't dependent on just one thing. It needs to be diversified. I mean, everybody in agriculture has heard that word 100 times, and it's in some years 100 times a day. But it to do it so it's not diversified into agriculture is a different beast. I mean, you had a guest on your podcast where he was talking about the fact that everybody used to have an off-farm job, and I think that's great. And that makes a lot of sense. It's the fact that you're still working for somebody else. And that is something that I think makes it a short-term solution because you're on somebody else for income. Is that income more secure than, say, becoming an entrepreneur in a different market? Sure. Does it leave you open to other things as an entrepreneur? Absolutely. But I think in farming, I mean, I don't think I could go work for somebody else anymore. I have too many thoughts. I have too many habits that aren't compatible with another person in a scenario where they're paying my paycheck. I look back and if I would have stayed sales rep role for a company for the last 9 years, 10 years, would I have more money? Maybe theoretically, but I don't know if I would have been in the same scenario where I'd be able to have kept farming or if I even would have wanted to. It's a little bit of stubbornness for the situation as well.
What is the difference between being tough and being stubborn in business?
I don't think there's any difference really. Sometimes I think it's where the perception is coming from and the person's experiences. If it's your own experiences and your own perception, if I say I was tough or I was stubborn, they're the same thing. If someone else can look at me and say that, well, he was tough and they mean that in a good way, or he was tough, meaning he was a jackass. Stubborn can mean that I was, unwilling to change. And it's like, well, that's probably inaccurate when it comes to that perspective of the scenario. But um, yeah,
When do you know it's time to kill an idea instead of pushing harder, Jeff?
it depends on what that idea is, and it depends where that idea fits into your goals as a farmer, or as a person, honestly. If the idea is I want to make a certain amount of money, the money is budgeted for things that create something else, then that's an idea that's going to stick around for a long time. And again, the bend not break type mentality. But if it's an idea that came to you, you know, a couple weeks ago, hey, I'm going to try this. You try it, you think about it, it doesn't work, then you drop it and you do what you were going to do to begin with, right? You've always got that. The plan A is normally the plan. The plan A is the one that gets you up in the morning and you're excited to try something or do something, and that's not always plan B. Plan B is the next. And again, sometimes plan B works great, and it's because you couldn't get past your nose to know there are other options out there. I think the important thing is to slow down to some degree and think about what your goals are, and to look at it from a different, can't see the forest for the trees type mentality. That's one of the things that I've always been aware of about myself, is that I have an idea and I'm going to go do it. Well, I may be looking past how an easier way or a better way of doing it would be, because plan A is plan A. So I think, to answer your question, the idea doesn't get killed very easily.
You talked about your dad not being able to help you, and if your grandfather was here, him not being able to help you. And I was curious as to why and what kind of help makes you stronger and what kind of help makes you resentful.
None of that I said was in any way derogatory towards those
Absolutely
individuals.
not.
They're people that
Absolutely.
have been mentors or role models my entire life, and I admire them. But the situation for today's farm is so much different than back then. A great analogy for this is when my dad was my age. I remember my dad turning 40. I remember the shirt he wore for his birthday party. It was teal green, had some sort of characters on it, over the hill maybe, or something like that. But it was that sort of, their dad was going through some tough times, or had talked about some tough times when I was starting to farm, or even growing up, deciding I was going to farm, where they made decisions that are impossible today. You could just not fertilize your wheat, because all you did was grow wheat and durum and maybe something else, and you had summer follow or chem. So you really weren't, the numbers were different, the rewards were less, 100%. And that made for some tough times, and they grew to be a hardened people because of those tough times. They learned that, success is fleeting to some degree, and that, but the analogy is that I can't not fertilize these crops. I can't save my seed for, to grow canola. That's a good example of a crop that is really just high inputs no matter what. It's, you got to buy the seed every year. You got to fertilize it to the nuts, and you got to hope for a crop to come back, and it's going to be high risk, high reward. Um, and they literally did not seed to some degree, because they're growing half their acres or chem follow, or or some sort of follow. So it's not realistic to take an industry that has moved past that point with a couple zeros behind every decision that you make either way. um you know and that's sort of where, when I was listening to your podcast, where I was about to unmute myself or about to ask a question, and I didn't. But my response at that time was because of this mentality, where I can go get another job, but it's not going to make a difference. It's really not. You're talking about, a situation. I mean, these are hypothetical. But let's say a full-time job, you make 100 grand a year, easy math. Full-time job, good job, 100 grand a year. that doesn't even put my phosphorus in. My nitrogen is 3 times that. And I'm shooting for target yields that are doable. They've been done. They're not the best year ever, but they're a good year. So it it's difficult because the scenarios are so different. Land is worth a heck of a lot more now. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. For growth, it's a bad thing to some degree. For equity, it's a great thing. And I think that it's tough for me to talk to certain things, and I think it's tough for dad to talk to me because they're not apples to apples anymore. It's apples to oranges, and for granddad, it's a completely different world. I think those people, my dad included, my granddad obviously included, they worked incredibly hard, and I'm glad that the markets got to a place where they could retire successfully, and they deserved it because they worked hard and they saw struggle and they did struggle and they persevered. Not all did, but those two men did. And I think that I can't look at that. I can't work harder, right? And that's sort of the other frustrating thing, that hard work back then was a difference between getting the crop off and not. It was an if, right? And you had to work hard. For me, because of technology, do I work less hard than them? Probably, honestly, physically, absolutely. But am I way more stressed? I think I am beyond the most, I think, and this is maybe egotistical, honestly, but to look at it, to look at their worst times and on my worst times, it's frustrating to think that they don't see my bad times as their bad times. And I think that's where the disconnect is the most frustrating. That the times that I've been through, and because there's more zeros to the end of it, it's more dramatic, but it's less dramatic because that job that I could go get for 100 grand would put my FOSS in. I still don't have any nitrogen to put on my crop. So I'm broke in a year, right? Where I'm taking my time away from the farm, away from my family. And it works the other way too. But in this scenario, it does not work the right way. You cannot work harder. You cannot make decisions that spend less money, that you can get the job done and still have a life. And I guess that's where some of the tough conversations never happened was, you know, do I want to farm? Yeah. Do I want to be away from my family 6 months of the year working in the oil patch if I was 20 years old? No. I mean, there's certain times they don't line up with my goals. And I think that's where maybe stubbornness comes in over tough, is that I could be tough in the oil field, or I could be stubborn and stay here and figure out how to make it work so that my family sees me. I'm a present father. And in no way is this in contrast to my dad. I saw my dad for every meal, right? But there's just talking about those differences is difficult for that generation because they went through tough times. They persevered. They had success. But the reason why they had success to some degree is because the time that they retired was on an upswing, and the land that they owned, that they worked their asses off for 40 years, was worth 10 times for what they bought it for, or more. I mean, that's the nuts and bolts of the situation. And it works out in my favor too. I understand that. I can't say that it would be great if my dad relied on me even more for his retirement, right? My dad and mom were smart in that succession planning situation, and we're still in the middle of it, but I think it's going well. And they have helped me in that. You asked about like, where does the help come in kind of a thing. They did help me, right? Like they have helped me in those situations. I still owe them money, right? Because of the succession plan that we have, but it wasn't due May 1st. And if I didn't pay it by June 1st, they weren't threatening to pull the land, right? So it's, again, I think I've used the word situational 100 times already in this podcast, but it's situational.
I'll put a quarter in the jar every time you use it. And then
You better get a big jar.
You mentioned the word broke. If farming is such a good business, why are so many farmers broke?
I don't think farming is a good business. I think it's a I think it's been taken advantage of by every single step along the way. I don't think it's on purpose. I don't think it's like, oh, we can pass. I think it's just done. We're the last person in line to some degree. We're the last person at the food line, and there's no more money in it at that time. I think the industry is broken in a way that probably the only way that it will not be broken is if, and it will never happen, if farmers join together and stop selling grain or stop paying bills in a way that's noticeable, impactful, and resonates with anybody in the industry that it would make a difference. But that's illegal, right? Everything that is done to us is legal. And I'm not saying this done to us in a way that's, oh, poor me. No. I mean this in a way that the whole industry is designed, unintentional or not, that you know the benefits are taken away in a market that is just that, a market. It's not, oh, you know, my mechanic is taking all my money or spending more. I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it's structurally, we are the last person in line. We are the first person. I mean, I sell my grain and I expect, I mean, this is something that I tweeted about 20 years ago or whatever. I expect a check immediately. And I will, and it doesn't happen all the time, but I expect immediately. Did I pay my retail on time? No, I sure didn't. And yes, it's hypocritical, but I expect a check as soon as that truck dumps the grain. Like, I'm just going to put a line in the sand. Is it fair for that company because they're not the company that whatever. But that's sort of the mentality. It's we will spend all of our money up front, and then the day that we get paid, it's sort of like, now I'm giving it all to everybody else, right? Unless the prices go phenomenally high, which again, farmers are their own worst enemies to some degree, but it's all gone, right? I could make $3 million next year, and 2.9 of it's gone before I get to the new year, right? So, do I have all the answers? Absolutely not. And it's just more to talk about and vent about more than anything.
Perfect place for it, brother. Who's actually making all the money in agriculture then, and why isn't it the farmer?
I don't think it's one person. I think it's the apple or the pie or whatever gets sliced up. I don't think it's one person. It's, you watch the canola market go up and all of a sudden your basis widens and doesn't you have the same price in your pocket. Um, I'm not a I'm not a grain company. Don't know how good they're doing. I'm not an egg retailer. I don't know how good they're doing. I'm more speaking about my perspective, my side of the coin, where I'm not saying that everybody else is making more than I already have, but it's sort of obvious that it's not really trickling down the whole way. We're the last person in the pyramid scheme. Everyone else has got their guys under him. We're the last guy in the pyramid scheme.
What is a deal that you regret, and what structural mistake caused that bad deal?
I know the deal that was made at the wrong time for my farm. I made it at the only time I could, but I did trade in my equipment to get newer equipment, not new equipment, because my dad was retiring. I didn't have the money for a hired man. I wanted to do some things agronomically. So within a time of 2 years, which was 2022, 2023, roughly, I think, 2024, I traded in my equipment. I used up equity that I had in some equipment to buy other equipment because that allowed me to do it alone, essentially. Not alone, but I didn't have to hire a full-time hired man or didn't have. So I think that decision was made at the wrong time. I don't know I mean, that exact year, I don't know if I would have finished seeding if I wouldn't have had that piece of equipment. Um, Hindsight's 2020, but I mean, I think that is the one that gets the most ridicule from anybody who I talk blatantly financially, like using actual numbers and actual scenario. That's the one decision that I made where, I consolidated a John Deere loan into um, taking equity of some of the equipment that I had some equity in and putting it into a consolidation loan. I mean, it isn't, but it was where I took two combines and made one combine. I took my tractor and my tractor and my air cart and drill and got a bigger cart and drill. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, that whole set of equipment will be paid for in 2 years. And if I hadn't have made that, I would have had to have like, I was seeding with the 1830, and I got the last year that I had it, I would walk around the drill and find pieces falling off. And they're not pieces that needed to be maintained. We're talking welds breaking. And it's like, I can't do this. I can't farm and be, I can't farm and be a mechanic at the same time and still make the same decisions that, you know, I need to make to do well agronomically or business wise. And obviously I didn't do good business wise, but that's the one to sum it up. That's the one decision I think that gets the most scrutiny from myself and anybody who has an actual understanding of what that deal entailed.
That's unbelievable. And I can just tell how much thought has gone into that. And those are tough, tough decisions. And timing is important. If you had $5 million in cash tomorrow, what would you not do with it?
What would I not do with it?
Yeah.
I would probably not invest it. I think the first thing I would do would be pay my debts off immediately. So I had no debt. So I was farming in a situation that put me in a scenario that I don't deserve in the eyes of many. But it would allow me to make decisions as if I had the ability to make whatever decision was right. And I think I mean, Britt and I talk about this a lot, is I've come close to being out of this hole that has been dug. Um, and your comment there kind of about thinking about that equipment deal. I have thought about how to make this farm the way that I want it for so long. Been in reacting survival mode essentially for so long. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have that feeling. So that's why I say I wouldn't invest. I would pay my debt off immediately. I would keep whatever I had in the bank. I probably wouldn't spend a dollar of it. I probably wouldn't spend a dollar of it. I probably would still use I'd probably still use some sort of operating loan. Um, just because I think there is some benefit to using other people's money for things that haven't happened yet. Um, but I think I wouldn't spend it. I would pay off debt and I wouldn't invest it.
That's very boring. It's a very
Totally.
boring answer.
Well, I'm a boring person, Daniel.
What is something people romanticize about farming that's just wrong?
I think it's like any sort of movie where you see a scenario that you know has been Hollywoodized, like a battle scene, right? In the movie, it's up close and it's dramatic. And in reality, it's 1,000 guys versus 1,000 guys walking at each other, not running at each other. I think the part that's romanticized about farming is that, we don't wake up at 4 a.m. and go feed the cows or 5 a.m. and go feed the cows. I'm sure some people do. But it's the fact that our life is so isolated that we are in complete control to our own demise, to our own benefit. I could sleep in till, I mean, I get in a fight with the missus, but I could sleep in till noon if I wanted. I couldn't, but I could, right? I think it's the fact that we have way less structure than it appears. We do things every day. And there's some days like today, I don't know what I did yesterday. I couldn't tell you. I know that I was on my computer and I know that I did some book work and I know that I was outside with the kids and I know I was in the shop for a little while, but I don't know what I actually did. So, and that's not to say I wasn't productive. It's just it's a feeling. Um, but I keep having this weird like we're we're so dependent on the weather even for what we do. Like I could go outside and spend all day outside and not actually accomplish anything because it's pure ice out there, right? It's I think that we have complete isolation if we want it. And I don't think that's really romanticized in that kind of way. Um, you know, is some of it sort of accurate? Maybe it's my mentality. Grab my coffee, go outside, go for a walk, or go to the shop, or go feed the buffalo. I mean, I could do anything, and I think that it's we don't we don't always know what we're doing that day or that we've done the day before, but we've always done something. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, or if I just rambled for 2.5 minutes.
Well, the internet's going to decide that
Good.
ruthlessly. Jeff, if everything that you're building today works, what does your life actually look like day to day?
The exact same with no stress. I don't think I really make decisions based on fear. Um, I don't think I make decisions based on being unrealistic with the way that I want my life to be or that it would be any different. I don't want to go to I don't want to go to Hawaii for the winter. I don't want to go to the lake in the summer. Like I enjoy what I do and I think that's having boys has sort of brought that into a bit more of perspective for me because I mean, they're so much like me and so in a lot of ways that it's like, okay, well, I gotta watch this kid because he's about to suffer from a life of traumatizing self-doubt. But but time, it's like they're just so hopeful, right? Like so for Axel's ninth birthday, we bought him a 3D printer, and him and I got it fired up yesterday. And he printed this dragon egg. And then this morning before he went for school, he printed a dragon. And he said last night, he's like, Dad, how many businesses do you have? And I'm like, well, one, really. And he's like, well, no, like with the lasers and stuff, like that's another business, right? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, I think I really want to be a part of that part of your business, Dad. And I'm like, cool, buddy. Like to be able to, it's not even financially to be able to distract yourself from the stress of farming is so important because there's so many like the equipment deal that I made. There are so many times or a market that I missed or I didn't fertilize my fenugreek enough and I missed out on hundreds of thousands of dollars that could have been out there last year. And those are the decisions that will absolutely paralyze you because you're right. You did make the wrong decision, but the whole year is full of those decisions. And it's the ones that the environment either backs you up so it doesn't hurt as bad, or other decisions you made were really good. So you kind of have to be a goalie. Like you could get absolutely blasted one game and let in 10 goals and then the next game get a shutout and you just have to remember the shutout. You have to remember the good things. So I think with him, it's like I want him to know that if he's a farmer, you're not just a farmer. I mean, I love to joke about that. Any time anybody asks me anything or gives me a little bit of praise, it's like, oh, I'm just a farmer. And I mean it tongue in cheek, obviously, but I think it is important to know that this job doesn't have to define you. You can absolutely be a farmer. But I don't think anybody knows what the hell that means. So if in your brain you're dumb or you're just hardworking or you're poor or you've made the wrong decisions. I mean, that's just gonna eat at you. Um, and you can make all the right decisions and still be in the same situation. And I think that's where, for me, having boys hits really hard because I don't want them obviously, as a father, I don't want them to get hurt. I don't want them to hurt, but I also 100% know that the tough times in my life made me tougher, you know? So it's like the never-ending cycle of helping your kids and then not being able to, and watching them hurt and helping them up or letting them sit there for a little bit when they're kids and, oh, I'm fine, I can get up, you know? So I think that's one of the things that, you know, if Axel farms or the other two boys end up farming, that I'm very aware of, which I think is a difference in generations as well. I don't know if I was, and I don't mean this in a negative way. I just don't know if that was the way the previous generations really thought. Not that they didn't care for us or love us or any of that kind of stuff, but I think, again, situational. I think that they were going through other things. They had challenges that I probably have no idea about, right?
Absolutely. Everyone does. Everyone
Totally.
does.
Yeah.
It begs the question, if your farm disappeared tomorrow, what business would you build first?
I'm not sure I'm going to answer that question. If my farm disappeared, it would have to have been a natural disaster because I will fight for this thing until I can't fight anymore. So, and that's not to say that I am stupid or it's completely blinded. It's just, it's not an option because my goal is to have the next generation farm it if they want to. And in that mentality, it's not about me, right? Um, to to answer the question, I guess. I mean, I really like making things. Like I like to work with my hands. I'm not a carpenter, but I can build tables. I'm no laser technician, but I'll fire up the old X tool and make something. I've always liked, I've just always liked working with my hands, right? Untrained completely, but my brain likes to solve problems, so, or figure things out. And I imagine it would be essentially another version of farming that doesn't involve the farm, I guess, if there's no more farm.
You've never thought about quitting, not from an emotional perspective, but strategically?
Not from that perspective. I've thought about quitting emotionally all the time. I mean, it's almost hard not to sometimes. It's like, why the absolute heck am I doing this? But it's the same thing. You just got to back up a little bit and take a breath and realize that some of these decisions are just emotional, or these thought processes are just emotional. They're not rooted in anything besides your own perspective or past experiences led of the previous day, or that you woke up on the wrong side of the bed. I think that's one of the things that I've realized recently in my life, is that there are a lot of days that are bad and a lot of days that are good, that are the exact day. It's just how you viewed the entire day. That's not to say there aren't bad days. It's just your perspective of them can be handling the I like I remember, I won't go into complete details, but I was waiting for something. Um, Again, someone else is controlling that decision, I guess. I was waiting for something. And while I was waiting for that decision, I had a call from someone out of the blue that was bad news, and bad news for the farm. And then I had another call from someone that wanted to know the status of something in the farm. And it's like, when it rains, it pours, right? That is normally a really good thing in my world. But in this scenario, it was just, and I was just like, why am I doing this? Like, every dollar I make is going to someone else. I'm like, I, how the hell I'm going to get out of this? But I did, for the most part. And I think that if I had just given up, I would have really regretted it. And I think I know that too. Like, if I quit farming, I don't know what else I would want to do. There's lots of things I could do, but I don't know what I would want to do. I don't know what would get me up in the morning to have coffee on the deck or at the kitchen table, or where my brain would go there and I would give a shit. Pardon the French. I don't think I would care. I don't think that I would, if it wasn't indirectly or directly related to this place, I don't think I would care. It wouldn't really matter what I did. I would just do next thing came along. There's no roots in it.
Last question. What's a belief that most farmers hold that you don't agree?
I don't know if this is still true, but it was just Canadian Egg Day or whatever. And I remember some previous ones when I was active in social media where that farmers feed the world. And I absolutely don't give a shit about feeding the world. Do I want hunger to exist? Nope. Do I realize that a lot of my food or a lot of my materials get turned into food? Yep. But I mean, I have a crop that I grow that's used in mining. I don't really care how Potash Corp is doing. I don't know why farmers would care what their customers are doing. I think from a pride and ego and in a good way, I think we want to have high quality, trustable products that our customers buy, but what they do with it, who cares? Um, there's no, it's just there's just certain things that we do that just, I don't know, who cares? Like farmers feed the world. Yeah, sure. Oil companies also heat the world. I don't know. Like, stop tooting your own horn here, guys. Like, or girls. Let's just go to work. Go work harder. No one cares.
You're not looking for the pat on the back, Jeff.
Nope. No, I don't know. Everyone likes to be appreciated. Everyone feels like, oh, that's nice to know, right? I'm not saying that I'm immune to that or that there isn't a part of me that wants to know, but I don't really care. As long as it's not the wrong decision that I'm making, let's go, right? Like let's do this. Um, yeah, it's such a weird business because it's a family business, it's a generational business, it's a people business, but it's also a corporate world. It's also a business world. And, the whole start of this is me saying about farming is sort of farmers are sort of the last one on the totem pole or the last cow at the trough to some degree when it comes to finances. And that's the way the industry is. I'll rescind what I said. The industry isn't broken. It's working exactly the way that it's supposed to. It's just we're in a part of it where we don't see the same benefit all the time. But we're also in the part of it where we really do. You can string together some good crops and some good prices and you can be good, right? And if you're not an idiot with that time or that opportunity, you can set yourself up pretty good. It's like being a football player and you're done your football career at 30, and you spent all your money by buying a house in a place that you lived for or you got traded. I mean, there's so many analogies back and forth that you just have to do it right. And you have to match some good years up so that you're more immune to the downturns. Because everyone know, I mean, we brag about it. It's farming can be really tough emotionally and physically and all that, but it can also be really good. And there's a whole reason why we do it, that we have that same ability to do whatever we want to do in a day that not everybody has. And I think that there are farmers who squander that. There are farmers who are still living in a situation where they're missing time with their kids. And I don't have examples, and maybe I'm wrong, but they're missing time with their kids, or they're missing times with their significant other or their parents, or um, it's a good job. It just sometimes you need to put the business hat on instead of the farmer hat, and you need to put the farmer hat on instead of the business hat to make it seem like you're not crazy for doing it.
I thought of one more.
I'm ready.
If you could go back 2,333 days, what would you say to babyface Jeff?
Buckle up, kid. She's about to get rocky. Um, but it works out, right? And as much as my life has changed in 9 years, um, it's gotten a lot more wholesome. It's gotten to a place where there's stress in your life, but that stress isn't the same stress that you had before. And it's worth it.
Well, I thought we should call the episode "What Breaks First," but it won't be you. And I think for that very reason in itself, you should just relax and enjoy the ride because you'll never break, my friend. I'm proud of you. And yeah, you got a warrior spirit. And I guess that's one thing you can count on. You can think of all the other things as noise in the context. If you don't break, what does it matter?
It's one of those things where one of those analogies or one of those um topics or whatever where you know the answer, you know what you should do, right? To some degree, it's like stressing about things twice. You can stress about them now, worrying about it, or you can just figure it out as you go. And you're only really gonna, you don't know when that stress is gonna come. Like farming is a great example of that. You spend all this money and all this time in a crop that you have no idea and honestly probably no control over it being good or bad. If you did everything right, that's all you can do. So if you're stressed about it now, oh, it's going to be a dry year because the snow's gone already. How many times have we had snow in April that have made seeding late all of a sudden? So um, it's that who knows? Is that a good thing? Who knows? Is that a bad thing? Who knows? From Bluey. So Bluey's always right.
Louis. Louis
Australian.
always right.
Yep. Australian cartoon.
Check it out, folks. Shout out to Bluey, whatever that is. Jeff lives his life
Your
by
kids
Bluey.
are older than mine.
That's true. Well, you got a lot of blessings. You got a beautiful family there. You still have the farm, still in the game.
Yep.
And you're building another beautiful business, which fans of Growing the Future are going to hear lots about since we're working together to bring your beautiful creations to market. And it's going to be a fun ride. And it's crazy for me to have you on the show 9 years later, but it's also really exciting. We've lots has happened, and lots is going to happen. But yeah, you've got the life back into you, brother. Since the dip, I would call it. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Dan.